much. Thank you very much, Mr. Surgeonnet, also for speaking in Italian. Now, a sustainable economy starts with people, training, work. So let's start the first of the roundtables today, which is linked to people and training and skills. I'd like to invite the four people of the roundtable: Maria Anghileri, who is the president of Young Entrepreneurs in Confindustria. We're going to also have Daniela Fumarola, who's going to link in remotely, and also I'd like to call upon also Teodoro and Maurizio Marchesini, who is the Vice President of Jobs and Industrial Relations from Confindustria. So you can all applaud the four. So, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here together with us. Now, I'd like to start with the young people from Confindustria, the business association. As we know, we have difficulty in Italy of maintaining rather than attracting young talents to stop them going abroad, and so that they can express themselves to the full here in Italy. Now, what is the vision of young people from Confindustria on this key issue? Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to give the opinion of young entrepreneurs. We've talked about sustainability, social sustainability, allowing people, young people, to be able to express themselves in this country. Unfortunately, the data are not that encouraging, because in the last 10 years we have lost 87,000 young degree holders. And indeed, as President Moratti mentioned, we have those 2 million young people who are excluded from the social and economic citizenship, if you like, of this country. We young people are looking into this together with the University Look to see what these and who these people are, because we have data consider them. They're often considered as needs, not in education or in employment or in training. But we don't really think that's necessarily true. We have to start, however, with training. And we, as Confindustria, underline the importance of investing in schools, in the systems and in the subjects that we teach. But we have to be very pragmatic, because the first 50 universities in the world of STEM subjects, we see that 21 are in the US, and that's not surprising, and 15 in China. So what makes us think is that up to 10 years ago, this number was in fact 0. 50 years ago, I beg your pardon, says the speaker. So China has been able to bring forward its STEM excellence with a plan. So we hope that there will also be a plan here to bring in that sort of skills training, which will allow young people to find a job where they can blossom and thrive in this country. And a survey that was carried out among expats asking them why they left the country, and the answer is not just a question of salaries, which of course is a problem, but it was more the idea of the opportunity to grow. That's where we have to start. Thank you very much, Ms. Anghileri. Now, President Orsini talked about uncertainty when he took the floor. I'd like to ask Daniela Fumarola from Cisl, how can we protect and help workers to develop? We've lost her. How can we help them to develop their skills and carry out their skills in an economy which is so shaken by external and internal factors? So training and protection of workers. Thank you very much for this. I'm sorry if we lost contact, but we're during the conference and the convention. Now, as was said before, I think there is a need to make enormous investment in training. This is something which has really become an emergency issue. I think that training is something which is an indispensable social infrastructure, to call it like that, especially in such complex times as ours, characterized by transformation which invade our production system. I think also that technological innovation, which is taking place so quickly, ecological transformation, demographics with the aging population, but also new organizational models, all these things put us before the fact that we have to take action on training. It can no longer be ex post training, it has to be lifelong learning. And I think that it is one of the key forms of protection that we can give people. When we talk about guardianship and protection, we mustn't think in defensive terms, thinking that it's only with passive policies that we can protect people. On the contrary, we have to imagine a system which accompanies passive policies, but which is centered on skills, training of skills, and especially that can accompany people in the various transitions they undergo in their lives. I use a metaphor. It's almost as if the workers should have a little rucksack on their backs on which to continually fill with new skills, additional skills, and that's what will help them keep in a job, keep on the market. And this will be useful, especially for the older members of society that might be expelled from the production cycle, but they can keep in it with these new additional skills. So what we propose is the development of a new statute of the worker in the market, because I think there must be a range of opportunities to offer people who work to be able to guarantee this continuity and sure their rights, but at the same time create a network of protection, which of course has to be based on passive policies, but which mustn't be linked necessarily to the actual job. But has to be anchored to the job market. Especially young people change their situation. They go from one role or one company to another, and we have to be able to accompany them along the way. I think that there are a series of things that still can be improved. The reference to ETS, of course, is very important because I think that these are fundamental instruments to bridge the gap between supply and demand of skills on the market. And this will allow us to offer young people a dignified future, which will allow them to match up to the challenges they face. This means, however, joining forces and also, of course, making investment in training. I don't think that companies are our counterparts, are opposers. In fact, these are people that we have to join forces with to ensure that the work environment will give stability and possibilities to workers. Thank you. I like that metaphor of the backpack. I think we have to take away some of the stones of the entrepreneur who has to climb Everest, but also put lots of things in the backpack of the workers to add skills. But what skills, in fact, should we add, as there have been many, many technological changes? Technological change is certainly one of the big challenges that workers and companies have, especially the AI, of course, is the big looming factor. I'd like to talk a little about that. AI, we see, that is characterized by enormous rapidity of change and the enormous potential for change and transform not only productivity, which is the simplest thing, if you like, but also its possibility to reinvent the company, the supply chain, business, things that as yet don't exist. So it's one of the keys to competitiveness, to maintain that position that we have as as a country that we mentioned before. If we don't pick up this AI wave, we risk, in fact, falling behind. Behind this, of course, we have the impact on people and their skills. According to our survey, about 40% of hours worked will be impacted by AI. This means 9 million workers. So we're not talking about replacing them, but we're talking about increasing, transforming, and changing the way work is done. And if you like, it's a question also of taking away the less interesting parts of a job and making the worker concentrate more on the interesting parts. But to be successful and pick up these opportunities of transformation, we have to have two types of skills, going back to skills. First thing is vertical skills, those skills which are useful to the country's system, Italy's system, to be a player in the development of AI. In other words, having the possibility to develop algorithms, models, data, new processes based on AI. These will be part of the industry of the future, and we have to be on the ball. And then we have to have also horizontal skills, which will allow workers who are already part of the system, because there won't be 9 million new workers, of course, but we have to ask and allow these workers to be able to use AI, to be able to pick up opportunities and win the challenges of tomorrow. If we can't do this, we will create an ID divide. Just like we have a digital divide today, we'll have a divide between the people that have the ability to use AI and those that can't and remain behind. And if you miss that train, well, it's a very difficult disadvantage that you have. Well, you have to work to not remain behind, to have an approach to change, openness to change, and taking on board new things. And that means, of course, lifelong learning, something that people have already mentioned. And we can also talk about what actually happens and how can we do it in the country. Perhaps we can do that in a second round. In fact, you've been very quick, and I haven't mentioned the rules, if you like, of the round table. First of all, we're going to have a first round, and in a possible second round, we're going to go more in detail into practical issues, but feel very free to interact with other speakers, however. Now, President Marchesini, can you talk to us about positive practice, sustainable practices, how you involve training and people in training? In other words, the role that is played by training and skills willingly. Uh, very willingly. First of all, thank you for having this very important conference here, because sustainability means having the person in the center of one's focus. And this is the place where the people, with our fragilities, with our anxiety, with our hopes, this is a place where the person is at the center. So this is just the right place to talk of these issues. Can I give a very quick, can I intervene very quickly and talk to Ms. Fumarola? Training is very, very important. We all agree about that. And it's always fundamental, but it's fundamental in a moment like this, where transformation is very, very profound. AI is not just one of the many technologies bandied about. It's ahead of everything else. And it will dig very deep. And just because of this, and because training is so important now, we have to preserve it. And I refer specifically to episodes that are happening today, when training is becoming part of collective bargaining, where agreements are made. collective bargaining is all important, but it training must not be one of the combatant themes. This is something we're all interested in. In fact, the ESGs are being used by companies, but this was something that was already part of their DNA, company's DNA. I see that very clearly in my country. It means, for example, that we have to expand into areas that perhaps were neglected before, but these values were already in the company, and we are ensuring that they are measurable, that they can help to plan the future. Our company, for example, well, we make plant for cosmetic and pharmaceutical products, and we export. And in perhaps 90% of our products. And of course, we have to take into account the cultures of other countries. Of course, it's abstractly very important, but it's very, very practical. If you work for Pakistan or another country, they all have cultural needs. You have to accept, therefore, other cultures. It's an everyday factor for us. You can't treat people in a completely similar way. No, we have to take this into account. One client is different from the other. This is part of our everyday attitude, and this is part of the training of people. People are at the center of our work. We who are based on technology, we absolutely have to have people at the center of our country, of our company, because without people at the center, our technology won't make strides ahead. I mean, apart from any ethical values, which are of course very important, but apart from that, we have to make people the center of our companies for that very reason, for the good of our company. And we have this practical attitude. The ESG values make this transparent, if you like. We practiced this before, and we continue to practice this in the future. Now, I have another thought. Ms. Fumarola says that we don't see the company as an opponent, as a possible ally, she said. And as a Vice President for Industrial Relations, do you see a climate in this uncertain time? Do you see a climate which is favorable? Well, I don't really see this favorable climate. I hope that it will come into being. I'm being sincere. We're all part of the same world. I always say that the enemies of our company are not inside, they're outside. There are the many, many difficulties that the entrepreneur and his or her co-workers have to face every day, but they're outside of the company. It certainly is to be hoped that we don't have a conflictual but a collaborative relationship with workers. We're talking about the environment, and the environment is reflected in the EU policies that put the blame on companies and on enterprises and on agriculture. That's not just wrong, but it doesn't help us solve the problem to put all the blame in this corner. We're the first to want to solve these problems. Enterprises, businesses are not against the revolution and the environmental revolution. We all are citizens and we realize the situation, but the market is developing in a particular way, and we have to follow the market as a result. So we're not the enemies. Certainly, if we're pushed towards the wrong solutions, the first to suffer will be the environment, because the wrong solution wastes time and the environment doesn't have time. I recall to certain regulations on packaging, the automotive sector, and so on. So we are not following a vanguard battle. We certainly want to do things, and we hopefully will do these together with the worker representatives. because the workers are all important, not only as citizens, but they're an essential part of the working world. So also in collective bargaining, these issues must be clearly set out. Obviously, we'll hear from Ms. Fumarola. Uh, Ms. Anghileri, I know it's a commonplace saying, but yesterday or the other day, talking with entrepreneurs that help companies to open up in the US, there were several, but who knows now. But talking about these entrepreneurs, they said, well, in the US, you send a couple of mails, you open a bank account, you open a company. It's been said many times, but that is true. How do you create a context? Uh, we talked about the norms of Europe and the norms which in fact, encourage people to go elsewhere, especially new technological startups. In other words, how do you create a context in which young entrepreneurs can best express their entrepreneurship? Now, let's start from something positive. The desire, the wish to take a risk is there. 1 out of 3 high school kids say they want to be an entrepreneur. The problems are the obstacles and the hurdles they have to overcome afterwards. This was already mentioned. The first is the problem of access to credit in a country where the banking system is perhaps not the most appropriate to help companies that are starting up. Of course, the startup companies are most at risk. Venture capital is rather insignificant compared to the US. And as you reminded us as well, the bureaucracy is completely different in the US. In Delaware, startup doesn't have any cost and can start up in the whole of the US. So as we, as young entrepreneurs, heard that finally we will see a provision which has in fact been in the pipeline for 10 years in Europe, which is so-called the 10th state. In other words, this is a state or SME, this applies also to the SMEs, where this young company or SME can in fact set up without bureaucratic burdens and can do so through all the EU. We really hope that this will be a concrete and effective provision which will allow young companies to really get going. So this was the concept which was contained in Draghi's report of the unique and entity which is a European startup, not just from one country within Europe. And Draghi was saying that this sort of startup should be allowed within Europe, especially when we're talking about the tariffs being applied today. Certainly, the free circulation not only of people, but also of companies, because the other big problem is those companies which, despite all the problems, can grow in Italy, and then at a certain point they can't scale up, as it said, and we have 400 billion in startups that go to the US, and I think that's a great loss for a economy, but not just from the economic point of view, but from the social point of view, because these are our brains that are drained away from our country. And these complications also in the Trumpian vision, if you like, are in fact constitute the small levies and tariffs, and we can't use these as an answer to the world tariffs, whereas they could be used by the country. I'd like to go to Ms. Fumarola on the basis of what was said by Mr. Marchesini. We also have the Ms. Fumarola. Have you an answer to that? Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you fine. Yes, to President Marchesini. Yes, solving the criticalities within the work labor market and when companies can be done through participation, and a popular petition on participation is one of the things that we push. Yes, when you have participative governance, you argue, you talk, and I presume that Mr. Marchesini is referring to the metalworkers contract or agreement. Yes, I'm sure that you, in fact, were mentioning that, says Ms. Fumarola. Yes, certainly every party uses the instruments and tools that it believes that at that particular time are most appropriate. We think that we should be able to go to a further responsibility and sense of responsibility, because this is the moment when we have to have this. So I invite President Marchesini to take on and be very active and proactive in this area, and because a labor agreement is not just a salary agreement, it's part of a process which sees bargaining as a key tool, and it's a participative tool that we must use. We think that participating, it means choosing the right method and sharing the responsibility. We think that this is a reform that should be brought in, and putting people at the center of the point. And we want to give the people more responsibility within a company. And it not only qualifies the worker more, but it qualifies the whole company. So this is the best philosophy, we believe, to be able to face the transformations that we've just been talking about. I don't think it's possible to tackle these transformations not involving people who actually work. I think that this is all important. Otherwise, we would leave aside some of the people who are responsible also for the results that company has. That's why we think that we need a new responsibility pact, which sees workers, companies, and institutions all work together. It's a pact which must be founded on common aims. I think that this is really urgent an issue, and we can't get around it. The growth of productivity, lifelong training and learning, as was mentioned before, innovation, sustainability, how to manage transition, be able to implement Article 43 of the Constitution means going in that direction, in our view. So we put forward this text, this bill. It doesn't mean that this is an exclusive proposal on our part. Again, using increasingly second-level collective bargaining. It's not a prescriptive text that we are putting forward. It's an invitation to all the actors of a company to develop the good practices that have been developed and which have worked in many large companies as well. And with the second level collective bargaining, we think that this will add value to works, will allow the work experience to be better and improved. So this text is now at the Senate, and we hope that it will be passed for the very reasons that I explained before, because we see this as the best possible way, and we propose this method, in fact, to be able to take on the criticalities that we are facing. We think that this is, in other words, an opportunity that the whole country can take up, and in the right climate and in the right atmosphere. This opportunity must be seen in terms of how to manage the criticalities that we are facing today. But also it is a look to the future as well. because certainly it's not just a question of handling emergencies, but goes much further afield than that. Thank you very much for this input with regard to the participation of workers in the life of a company. I see Mr. Marchesini ready, but you're very, very good. Now, if we can do a quick further round and talk about sustainability before the coffee break. AI is a sort of technology that needs our collaboration. We have to be good at using AI. So, how does this centering help in this sense? Certainly, AI is not autonomous, it works with man for man. And our challenge is to make it work the best for and with man. What we're seeing happening today is the creation of so called hybrid teams where human colleagues are flanked by agents. I mean, they're no longer the assistants that help us and suggest things, but I would call them agents. They are pieces of software which do things for us. They do it digitally, and they will do this increasingly physically with the robotics and physical AI. Now, this, in fact, means that we have to face new challenges, especially when we are going, and this is our experience, we're going from the pilot world where these things are experimented to actually what happens at a scale level. Two-thirds of countries have already started inverting in AI, but only 36% is doing this on a scale basis, and only 13% is drawing bottom line advantages from this. So this means we're in a transition phase. We have to learn from the experience, and we have to underline how this can be helped. We have 25,000 workers in Italy that we are giving this instrument to change the way that we work, and we're doing this with our customers. We have many pilot products on stream, and we're trying to find out how we can develop this system. I mean, apart from the skills that are necessary, we also have to have a view of the process rather than the individual task. Otherwise, we're going to automate one piece at a time, not taking on the opportunity of reinventing the whole process that we are used to. We also have to have an ability to highlight and upgrade everything that the company has. I'm convinced of this, by the way. We don't need AI which is the same for everybody everywhere. What we need is to upgrade the particular skills of that company, of those workers, of what the informal and formal parts of a company are, to ensure that we ensure the AI creates a differentiation of the particular company, which is, of course, a competitive plus. We have to think about modeling these teams from an architectural and also process point of view. In fact, I call it an HR system of the agents. We have HR systems to handle people, but we have to now think about how to reinvent these hybrid teams of men and agents, AI agents. And that's pretty difficult because we have to go back, if you like, to the basics. And the last point, if AI and scale AI is to be successful, we need trust and confidence. Trust that AI will do things correctly and rightly. So we have questions of responsibility and also of accountability and ethics. 94% of workers today, we have found, ask for AI skills learning, and only 5% of companies, however, are available to provide this. And this is a gap we have to close, because it's only with skills and understanding we will create trust and confidence. And we need the confidence on the part of all workers. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask something about the Marchesini group. Now, apart from the fact that you talked about this in your first round, but what about that responsibility pact that was mentioned? I don't want to be polemic, nor do I want to do this. It wasn't the Federmeccanica that to abandon the bargaining. It was the workers that abandoned the bargaining table on monetary terms. We didn't even start discussing other aspects. With regard to worker participation, Confindustria is not against participation. We are concerned that there be a fundamental principle of the free choice enacted by a company. If an enterprise decides on a particular form of participation, and the law provides for many types of participation, we're very happy about that, but it has to be a free choice on the part of the enterprise. Now, I have no doubt that if participation provides and gives good results, entrepreneurs, in fact, and I'm one of them, will actually copy and do this if they see participation works. So there's no preclusion, but we don't want this red line to be exceeded. It has to be a free choice. For the rest, everything is fine. Well, you were really very good indeed, and we're kept within our allotted time. I'd like to ask you for this, have this last round, just very, very briefly. Can you sum up sustainability? Sustainability is contamination, idea, visions, and lifestyle. Secretary Fumarola of the Cisl. Well, for me, sustainability is being able to give a working world and a general world a better world to those who come after us. Thank you. Well, sustainability is also looking to the next generations and certainly leaving something better than we have today. That's sustainability. President Marchesini, well, sustainability means the man, his humanity in the center, because everything else, the environment, the technology, economy, has to rotate around man, because otherwise we lose the sense of why we're here on the world. We'd like to thank you all, Maria Anghileri, Daniela Fumarola.